Hi, welcome Raj. So in this mock interview round, we are going to evaluate model context protocol, how agents are connected, and how we can use tools. Okay. And just to give you a quick context for why MCP is used. So MCP is used across, AI applications like Claude or ChatGPT, with which you can allow these LLMs to connect to your local file systems. Okay, or respective data sources which you want to connect to. Apart from the data sources, we can have tools connected, which means they could be, you can connect these LLMs with search engines. You can connect them with any of these local applications which are there. And these applications can be executed with this model context protocol. It could be calculator, it could be notepad, it could be any other different application which might be there on a local setting. Apart from that, there are workflows which can be organized using specialized prompts, which enables these LLMs to access key information and perform tasks on behalf of us. So MCP is an important protocol, and while we have to implement GenAI systems at enterprises, so MCP is an important concept to address. So I'm coming back to the evaluation. So we are going to get started with the evaluation across model context protocol. And here is the first question for your reference.
So maybe before that, I'm having one question, Devan. So can I ask?
Okay, Raj. So let's get started with the first question. So the first question is, what is the model context protocol and how does it standardize interactions between GenAI agents, tools, and external context sources?
Sure, Devan. So just a second. Yeah, we'll start. Hi, Devanshu. Good morning. So today the topic we are choosing is MCP protocol. No, so one of the most interesting topic in the current industry in Gen AI. So, so when it comes to the what MCP is, so how it is going to control our Gen AI systems between how the interaction is going to happen between the user, a kind of AI agents between AI agents and um, models. How the interaction going to happen? How the request is they going to handle between the AI models and agents? That's what a MCP. So when comes to the standardizing the interaction between the agents and tool, so it is purely based on the how on what basis before calling the MCP, how the authentication authorization is going to work. Then whenever calling the MCP, so what is the input? So we need to standardize the proper structured input, whether it is as JSON or any text format, in any format we need to structurize it. So that is the input will the input and the output, what the output we are going to get it from the MCP server before calling whether models or agents. So that we needs to properly define what kind of inputs. So then only we external tools will uh, will receive as an input, and the tools can able to do their actions respectively. Devanshu. So this I think this is the key. This is the way I can standardize the MCP protocol design now.
Okay. Okay. So let's get to the next one.
How would you design MCP-based tool orchestration for multiple agents sharing context securely while preventing prompt injection and maintaining auditability?
Okay, how would you design MCP based tool? So in this scenario, if I want to design a MPP based tool, means I will place a MCP before calling any agents. So whenever user hits the query, it will reach the API gateway. In turn, API gateway decides, interpret it, and it will decides based on the user access and the role authentication will take place. Then it will redirect to the LLM model. LLM model interprets the user query. Then will be the centralized MCP tool. I will be placing the centralized MCP tool between the LLM model and before external tool calling. So a MCP server will decide and will get the user inputs and decides it will design such a way which tool we need to call and construct that common schema input schema and and it will prepare the context and it will send uh, a schema to the external tool. It will call the external tool and will be sending the schema to the external tool, and the external tool will validate that schema. It is expected schema validations will happen with with the once the validation is done, then the agent will perform the respective actions. Suppose if I want to get the finance auditing results for last month, means it will generate all the results, and since it is the finance one, it will be considering properly consider the prompt by avoiding the injection, data masking, and any guardrails we need to apply. Accordingly, we'll be applying it. So with through the entire process, so we're starting from the when a user sends the request till the response sending to the user, the I will be tracking the auditability. So what is the request ID, user information, uh, what which tool is called, what is the schema which we have passed from the MCP server to the external tool, and what is the latency cost, what is the token is everything will be I will maintaining as a log for the better auditability. Devanshu. I think this way I can design the proper MCP based orchestration tool. Devanshu.
Okay, sure. Let's get to the next one.
How would you troubleshoot intermittent MCP tool call failures across agents while preserving context consistency, latency targets, and secure fallback behavior?
Okay, in this scenario, just if I am getting any failures in the MCP tool called failures, mm, so I will be collecting the logs and which and what place that are we getting a failures? Is there any proper log? Is the log is going to help us to do the find a root cause analysis, troubleshoot? If not, then I will be doing a diagnosis in the MCP tool calling exact place. So, is there any issues between the uh, that consuming from the our system to the MCP? What is the any endpoints are we missing? Any gateway we are not missing? Any the MCP tool is not giving a proper response. If there are any fixes required, I will be putting the fix, and any input output schema we need to change it. I will be consider accordingly. I will be identifying the root cause in the MCP tool failures. What is the error? What is the error we are getting it from the MCP tool? Is the MCP tool itself is not responding. If there is any error, so based on the error, I will be try to identify. Maybe there is some protocol missing. Also, there will be chances there between the application and MCP tool. So we'll be try to identify is any a port blockers is there or not. We'll try to resolve that port number blockers. Then whenever the after MCP MCP is resolved, is there is any tool calling? Is there any issue between the tool between the MCP server and tool calling? And so in throughout the process, is there any improvements we can do it in the prompt optimization, context compression, these kind of if you figure out if you fix this one, I think it will be help us to the it will help us to the latency, and it will improve the latency as well. Cost also help us to improve Devanshu.
Okay, sure. Let's get to the next one.
What MCP governance and versioning strategy would you define to evolve agent tool contracts safely across teams without breaking compatibility, observability, or security controls?
So when it comes to the governance and versioning strategy as an architect, so first will come to versioning throughout the entire system. I will across this, I will be for I will be defining a version for the entire system. So if there is any major release, I will be increase the version number sequence wise. If there is a smaller releases, I will be maintaining the subsequence number. So in all the prompt or MCP, if there is any separate MCP system, we are calling in all the prompts. Um, yeah, agents or tool calling wherever across the each agent across the system, I will be uh, maintaining the same version number with throughout the pipeline. With that version number, I will be making sure that deployments will happen. And when come to the governance, so I will make sure all the governance and the complaints takes place and adherence to the organization policies, uh, security, security and data privacy. When it comes to security, whether are we implemented proper access based control, or authentication authorization, uh, then how to avoid hallucinations and prompting guidance, data masking. Sorry. Then faithfulness, groundedness. These are things are we track renting. These are the things will be considered when we are going to implement the observability. From there we can token cost, latency, everything. It will help us to implement the observability. There also. I think this way I think we can implement the governance and versioning strategy in the MCP system.
Okay, sure. Let's get to the next one.
How would you benchmark and optimize MCP context exchange and tool selection quality at scale across agents, balancing latency, token cost, and reliability?
So whenever I started, if I would to benchmark anything, so I will be decide based on the what is the scalability, complexity, and the accuracy of the models. Whatever MCP system we are going to take, reliable, and what is the governance and the security. If security we are going to resolve it, and the tool, if in any tool we are optimizing, so with the tool validation, what is the latency, what is the costing, the per token, what is the costing, there it will helps the system to work reliably, scalable or not. So these are the techniques I will be adapting for that to benchmark it, Devanshu. So whenever I will be end-to-end process, I will be prefer logging. What is the trace? What is the trace ID? What is the query? What is the input and output prompt tokens we are used it? And so what is the model? What is the tool we are used it? So which tool is invoked? So with this all the informations, I think we can mm, select the tool based on the quality they want. So I think it will help us to it will balance the latency to cost.
Okay, sure. Let's get to the next one.
In a regulated enterprise, how would you architect MCP for human-in-the-loop approvals, least privileged tool access, and end-to-end traceability across autonomous agents?
Sure. As an architect in this scenario, so I will be structurally I design like a high risk or low risk. In case of whenever we are comes the if facing the high risk, I will be involving the human in the loop via uh, whether if it is the properly validated users before looping into human loop will be whether the user is authenticated and authorized the user for to do the human loop approvals as well as checking the privilege. Let's say even I'm a HR person. If I want to know about the finance, if the system is looping into the finance users, it will because being a HR, I will I instead of I approve the finance is the uh, it's not as per the policy, it's not tend to. So if with this tool proper tool privilege tool access, it will validating the proper access whether the user is the validated authorized user to approve it or not. So whenever whenever I'm involved in a human in the loop, so with the throughout the system, I will be enabling the traceability log. So to cap in case of any future anything requires to trace back, it will help us by the trace ID. What is the information we have passed in the human in the loop, and any screenshots, anything, it will be help us to for traceabilities. What is if it is the finance information? What is the if it is we are seeking for the finance approval, if any finance cost, anything related, what are information related into capture, we will be capturing it. Devanshu.
Okay, sure. Let's get to the next one.
How would you design MCP-based memory and context window management for long-running multi-agent workflows without losing relevance, privacy, or deterministic tool behavior?
Just a second, Devanshu. Uh, So if I want to, if I want to design a MCP based, so I will be designing a memory such as kind of a working memory. So it mainly the focus on the long running agent, right? So still in that case, I will be segregating a memory into the working memory, session memory, long term memory. Working memory for working memory is it mainly for that working chat or not only working task, so it will be keeping the memory and will be from there I will be providing answers and all. For session memory only for the entire window, I will be keeping the session memory active, and when whatever the response the user uh, will be asking a queries, I will be working on it. So if it is any for long term memory, I will be storing for all the informations better in case if we asking for the month wise or year wise anything queries is there, I will be designing such a way. I will be defining you whenever the design will comes. I will be designing whenever the model interprets the user queries. From there, I will be designing whether this query is based on whether if it is a I will be checking any data is relevant in the memory. From there, I will be fetching and I will be sharing the response. So otherwise, then I will be performed end-to-end activities. Devan. So I think which this will help us to provide the relevance data from the memory instead of looking back, instead of again fetching, and it will be helpful to avoid the costing as well as latency also. I think this way, I think I properly designed the memory-based MCP system.
Sure. Let's get to the next one.
How would you define MCP trust boundaries and policy enforcement for cross-tenant agent tool interactions, including identity propagation, data isolation, and revocation handling?
No, no idea.
Okay. Let's get to the next question.
How would you architect MCP-based dynamic tool discovery and capability negotiation across heterogeneous agents while enforcing policy, compatibility, and graceful degradation?
Okay, so considering this situation, so I will be designing a proper uh, whenever the user proper the security and compliance with if it is a regulated use case, the way I will be enforcing designing the proper governance and policy. So whenever the user so like whenever user interprets the whenever the user asks the query to the agent, so that query in turn will hit that API gateway. API gateway will decide what is the policy, what is the authorization, and whether the access based, whether the user is properly. I will be enabling the least privilege access with the role based, attribute based. Then it will be redirect whether it will redirect the model will interpret that query. So the in turn the query the LLM model interpret and it will trigger MCP. The MCP will decide based on the query from the what is the model given as input the MCP will decide based on the query. It will dynamically based on the tool registries and all it dynamically uh, call the dynamically sends the request to the tool calling. The tool calling will decide which to which API which tool call to triggers the one. So with that in the each tool calling I will be uh, properly forcing the policy, what are policies enforced to be do, whether the policy kind of a data policy, data readiness, and in case of password XP, these are the policies I will be in all the stages I will be following it, Devan. So
Okay, sure. One last question.
How would you validate and certify MCP compliant tools before production use across agents, covering schema fidelity, security, resilience, and backward compatibility?
no, Devan. So I'm sorry.
Okay. Next question.
How would you design MCP observability to trace context lineage, tool decisions, and agent handoffs end to end for root cause analysis and compliance reporting?
Whenever I'm designing the observability tool for the MCP system, so I will be tracking. So what is the user request, what is the LLM model interprets, and what is the so as a log perspective, what are inputs into a MCP, what is the schema we have designed for this request, or which tool it called. So what is the tool decisions taken, and end to end. So to track the what is the request, what is the context request we sent to the to LLM model, and what is the response we got. These things are help us to design the any failures is happened the failure MCP what are MCP request is processed. Is there any failures errors? I will also have a costing token usage, any guardrails. These are the I think these are things I will be considering in the MCP observability tool, Devanshu.